Going live. And we're live with the Gambit Stratagem podcast. Welcome back to the new and updated Radio Voice podcast.
You won't do that for the whole hour.
I'll do this for the whole hour. Oh, man. Wait, are we on the right? Nope, we're on the wrong side, but our names are on the wrong side. I'm Andrew Essig. That's Sean Crocker. Back with our updated podcast. We're trying some new stuff. I got a new podcast recorder here, and yeah.
And as you hear the sound
it.
effects, those are all preloaded. We actually haven't added our own flair, but they're perfect, really.
These were the stock sound effects that came with the with the device. But it stores a lot of sound effects, so we're getting ready to it's going to get weird. So yeah, today we are talking about a list of I thought this would be a cool topic. I don't know how to pronounce the guy's last name. Chris Bocher. We're going to go with Sean's pronunciation.
I said it confidently. I'm not confident.
Yeah. Sent to us by a member. Hang on a second. I'll get it.
One Michael Capizzi.
Yeah. Where did, I had figured out how to put the Twitter post. Anyway, it's a Twitter post with about 49. I'll figure out how to put it on the screen in a minute. I'm kind of like producing, and if you've been watching the update show, which if you're watching this, you've probably watched the update show. If out of the 24 of you that watch, I think the last update show we're up to like 40 to 50 views pretty consistently, which I'm thrilled about.
It's all about consistency.
That's about a roughly maybe slightly less than a quarter of our gym membership. So considering how much really or how little thought and effort we put into these things, I'd say that's pretty good penetration.
What a weird word choice.
Somebody just gave us a thumbs up. I'm seeing on the screen.
That's amazing.
That's how fun. It doesn't tell me who it was. I'm sorry if you're watching.
I'm not
watching us live. But we're going to talk about this list of 49 things. Chris Bocher, which is what we're going with. I've completed 10 Ironmans and treated over 3,000 patients. He's a medical doctor, I presume. Over the past 10 years, here's every fitness tip I could think of.
What if we looked it up and he's not a medical doctor?
I'm going to, you know what?
He's like an ayahuasca.
Let's, he's a shaman. You know what, Sean? Why don't you look up the guy while I
like a physical therapist?
While
right?
I figure out if I can put this on the screen. Oh, there's our banner, by the way. I forgot to put that up. We're 3.5 minutes in. I put the banner up. There we go.
So, former physical therapist.
Former physical therapist?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Husband, soon to be dad, former PT, and the sick care system. That's weird. It's a weird way to say it.
Well, I think we should be clear up front. Like, I'm in no way trying to promote this guy.
Yeah.
But I think his list is both simple and comprehensive and useful.
And number one kind of probably hits home a little bit more towards you now.
What is number one? Remind me.
Kids will only move as much as their parents do.
Yeah, well, we got a kid on the way. Here we go. Yep, kids will only move as much as their parents do. What do you think about that?
I honestly have not given much thought to kids, so I don't know. Like I grew up in my dad fitness. Like he was a amateur bodybuilder. I remember like being down in the basement with him while him and his buddies were bench pressing and, getting a sick pump going. With that said, I didn't do any fitness until heck, probably 8 years ago. I'm 33 now, so it didn't really set in for me, but
Yeah.
I think that one's a little bit more subjective.
I have a couple of some of these we're just going to gloss over, by the way, because there's 49, and we want to keep this podcast to a reasonable length.
Yeah.
And because we've never done this format before, I'm fairly certain it is going to upload to YouTube successfully, and people will be able to watch it. But there's no guarantee. So
We might just be spinning our wheels, which
we might just be
let's
spinning
do it.
our wheels. Yeah, having a couple of I'd say colleagues, like gym owners and trainers that have kids and have had kids. I think my one friend, his kid is driving now. He's younger than me, and he has a kid who's driving or is doing a permit or whatever. And I would say that's 100% true. I mean, his son has been like raised in and around the gym, and he, is fitter because of it. And he may not be like, not to say he's going to be a professional CrossFit athlete or anything like that, but it's just like, it's become part of his nature. I mean, I got into fitness because my dad had weights in the basement, and he just kind of like, he just always did. He had one of those, I think it was, the company was like Marcy or something. You ever see those where there's like, it's got like a seated bench press thing on one side, and then the other side is like a lat pull down. It's kind of like a tower
There's
thing.
like a leg raise or a quad extension.
Yeah.
Part attached to the end of the bench.
Yeah. Now I'm going to look it up and see if I can find it.
We had a Bowflex growing up. That was one thing I remember.
So he's got a Bowflex now. He progressed onto the Bowflex, but he used to have those? I think so.
Dude, what a way to just sell really expensive bands.
They're like rods.
Yeah. Well, you could probably get away with the same stuff with like a couple attachments to some $10 bands on Amazon, right?
Yeah. Here, this is you. Sorry, again. I apologize. You can't see this, but if we could pipe this up to the TV, or you need to sit over here at some point in the future so you can see what's going on. But I'm showing the Marcy workout station here.
Oh yeah.
Like
my dad definitely had
seated
those
chest press, and then he had like dumbbells and stuff. So I would just go down and mess around on that thing. And that's kind of what got me introduced to it. So I would do like bicep curls and push-ups, mess around. So I think that's 100% true. Number 2 is also a big one that I think some people might think is like, I don't want to call it fringe training, but it's kind of like if I were to coach a CrossFit class and say like to run like a diaphragm work warm up. So it's train your diaphragm. It's the most underrated and underutilized muscle you have.
Right.
I agree. But I also think it's like a little bit the breath work stuff. So I think the best way to put it is so many people that practice this, the breath work and the hot cold therapy and stuff are like kind of hippie about it.
Yeah.
That it kind of it takes away some of the legitimacy in some.
Yeah. See, and I actually went a different way with this one. When I read it, I thought of it more of like, this is a conversation Joel and I have been having a lot more recently with his kind of back rehabilitation stuff and him learning how to breathe and brace. I looked at it more as like, I learned how to breathe and brace and use my diaphragm through being brought up in like Olympic weightlifting, like heavy deadlifts, heavy pulls, heavy cleans. And then that having that knowledge base and that understanding was transferred into CrossFit. Whereas I think a lot of people, if they just kind of get into heavy lifting through CrossFit, you're already out of breath and you don't learn how to breathe deep into like the lower end of your lungs.
I wouldn't necessarily put those two in the same category. I agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. To me, when I interpret this, you already know where I was going, but I think like working the diaphragm, like working on your breathing, the efficiency of your breathing, the power that your diaphragm is able to generate, like how much air you can pull in and push out of your lungs.
Where I was going with that is like Joel's been learning the opposite, like how to breathe more effectively within a conditioning setting while lifting heavy weights, right?
Yeah,
like,
and I think that more ties into number 3, which is your core has little to do with your six-pack muscles. Like that's kind of like midline stability and activation, and breath often overlaps that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're saying the same thing, but
right.
In a manner of speaking,
Interestingly enough,
let's just agree to agree.
Yeah. I also interpreted number 3 differently though. So you said number 3 is your core has little to do with your 6-pack muscles. I took that as nutrition should be the cornerstone of like how to see progress there.
Yeah.
Right. Because like how many times have we seen, you know, X
I think
person like after a daily WOD go into the back and do countless sit-ups and planks and crunches and whatever. But again, like
I think he's got more notes on nutrition in here, but yeah, that's also true.
Yeah.
But I think
you could also look, there's another way I'm interpreting it now as I'm saying is like, also like don't neglect your spinal erectors, don't neglect your obliques.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of what I would
look at. And
to
body
me,
armor than
bracing when you're lifting is part of that. Like that's learning how to activate those muscles, and the breath is kind of secondary in a way, because it's like it's not really your diaphragm that's lifting the weight, it's your core that you're trying to activate, and the breath work kind of comes along with that. And to me, having done a little bit of breath work, I think it's exactly what he said that really struck with me, because it's like the most underrated, underutilized. Like people kind of acknowledge breath work, and I've messed around with some of that Wim Hof stuff. Have you ever tried like a Wim Hof type?
Yeah,
so
first time I did, I passed out. Which is not to say like it's ineffective or anything. Like it's super effective. It's just a very potent.
Yeah, you can get kind of lightheaded. Yeah, it gets easier the more you do it. But I was doing it. I really want to get back to it. But I did it pre-workout a few times, and it might be the most potent pre-workout ritual I've ever tried. I just felt like I was so in control of my breathing, but it's a difficult thing to do. You have to sit in a chair in a quiet room for 9 minutes. The little Wim Hof video I did is like, if you just Google like Wim Hof breathing.
He also has an app too that's free to use.
Yeah, but
it was free to use at one point.
It's free to download, but if you want to like sign up for it, there's a subscription or something. You know, I love subscriptions. As a man who runs a subscription-based business effectively, but that's a whole nother conversation. But we're providing you new stuff all the time. That's why it's a subscription. It's not like you're just paying a subscription to use the same piece of software month in and month out. Anyway, it's new things all the time. And it's like it's one of those things that not everybody's going to do, but I've recommended to people, and they've come back and been like floored by how like interesting and effective it is. And so I totally agree with that. Yeah. Moving right along. A focused 45-minute workout is more productive than 2 hours with no structure. I mean, that's CrossFit in a nutshell. It's like the fact that you can come in and do Fran in 3 minutes, and that's your like primary workout for the day is.
I think also like you can even go further into this. It's like kind of the idea of like put your phone away, like have a plan, knowing what you're doing when you're going into.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm looking at this from a non-CrossFit perspective, because again, like he isn't targeting this towards the CrossFit populace. Now, obviously our audience is very much CrossFit, but you know, imagine like before your CrossFit days going into Gold's Gym or whatever, you know, Globo Gym settings.
That's going to look different for everybody's fitness discipline. Like you could be spending the whole time on a bicycle, but riding your bicycle even outside with intensity and purpose for 45 minutes is more productive than just poodling around town for an hour or 2 hours. So 100%. And I think that's kind of part of why CrossFit works so well, is because it's like, now you're on the clock, so you don't have time to meander around.
Fiddle fart.
Yeah. Like this thing's loose. I don't know why. I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, intensity and focus.
Intensity and mechanics, consistency, and intensity. Number 5, establish full range of motion before building strength. I mean, yeah. I'm going to zoom this in and just put it on the screen. Again, back to Olympic weightlifting, that's kind of the whole deal. Like a lot of CrossFitters come from the wrong side of Olympic lifting in a way, because they already have built a significant amount of muscle mass and strength and constricted their mobility. And then we're like, hey, do an overhead squat.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I've been bench pressing for my entire, athletic career. So, and this is like another thing I highly recommend that some people, I'm sure, like, I don't know, maybe you don't think I feel like I sound like a broken record with some things. And I know Kelly kind of rolls her eyes every time I bring up certain things, but the knees over toes guy, athletic truth group stuff. I mean, we've started kind of incorporating a couple of those things into our gym wide warm-ups because they're so powerful and potent. And that's his whole deal, is like, you need maximum range of motion. Like, the reason your knees hurt isn't because you squat 400 pounds. It's because you never take your knees to full range of motion.
Yeah.
There's
a lot. We could really unpack this, and honestly, we could probably talk about this for an entire hour. But I think at its face value, like, yes, you need to establish a reasonable range of motion. Not, like, again, and this, like, my first thought is like reactionary on this one. It's like, you don't need to be, ass to grass squat before you start putting weight on the bar, right? You don't have to have a perfect extreme range of motion before you start building strength, but you need to have a capable and competent range of motion. You need to be able to comfortably squat below parallel. That doesn't mean like, your butt cheeks touching your heel necessarily, but
yeah, it's okay. So put most simply, I think for probably our viewers, and we can obviously, like, we like to speak to both what's specific to like us and our gym, but also to everyone. But let's be real, most everyone watching our podcast is going to be members of our gym or CrossFit or some other gym. And that is to say, like, if you have trouble reaching full depth in a squat, like if you get called out on your squat depth all the time and you're maxing out your squat in class, it doesn't mean don't max out your squat in that instance. It just means, like, maybe don't add that extra 20, 30, or 50 pounds and just try to squat lower and keep a tighter midline and like get a greater range of motion.
Yeah, don't look at, I think important to say, like, don't look at range of motion standards as from a competitive viewpoint. Like, don't look at like this counts or this doesn't count. Look at like, this is here to ensure that, your hips, your knees, your ankles, your shoulders, your T-spine, all of this stuff is staying healthy, flexible, and mobile. Don't look at it as like, oh, I only have to squat to this depth to make it count in competition. Like, that is the exact wrong approach, unless you're trying to go to the games. And then you're trying to maximize like your speed and stuff like that.
And you come at it from different angles. Like my approach, because we've always been, at least since Kelly and myself started this, we were focused on competition. So we've always held people to those standards, and ourselves and members to like squat depth standards and range of motion standards, both because competitively they're important, but also knowing that it's ultimately better for you. And so it's kind of like, that's one of the gray areas or the nuances of coaching in a gym like this is like knowing that not everyone has the ability to hit those range of motion standards, but that everyone should be trying.
And the more you try, the more you're going to be capable and able to.
How to kind of encourage that person to work for that, but also say, like, hey, the most important thing today is that you get a workout.
Yeah. But I think it's important to say so that people that aren't competitive don't look at it and be like, who cares if my squats parallel? Like, what does this have to do with me? I'm not going to go to a competition. Yeah. Or I think like probably the most egregious is the push-up standard, right? Like your chest not touching the floor means you are limiting your elbow flexion, you're limiting your shoulder rotation. Like, all of that stuff is important for longevity, for health. Mm-hmm. If it means you get a slower time on the workout, who cares? Because you're going to have a longer time in life and, moving well and staying flexible and injury free.
It's and we don't necessarily, either of us have the knowledge set to like really dive into the science of why that's important, but it's like in a squat, for example, I read that your hamstrings don't fully activate until you cross parallel. So like when you're in a squat, you're actually putting more stress on your knees and your quad tendons and all that kind of stuff when you're staying above parallel. Yeah. Like it's effectively harder on your knees to squat above parallel, and less hard to go below, because that's when the hamstrings are like. And when you have that balance around a joint, you're also taking the muscle to a greater length, which means it'll develop like kind of a greater like contraction strength through a greater range of motion, which is just better. Like it's objectively better. And people from the bodybuilder realm kind of gloss over that because you'll see them at a bench press station just doing. I just need to put
entirely different.
Yeah,
like their only goal is to maximize the size of the muscle fiber.
Right, but still for the health and longevity of whatever. Don't get me started on the standards of bodybuilding and how ridiculous some of the bodies look now. But like when I discovered CrossFit and like what a truly fit and functional, strong person looks like, it's a totally different body type. Like you could take, you could take what's his face that got popped for
Ricky
steroids, at the CrossFit Games, and add a bunch of testosterone to him, like put him on HGH, and I'm sure there are guys out there doing this, but put him on testosterone and HGH and have him just do CrossFit all the time. And I promise you his body's not going to look like the guy that won the Olympia last year. Yeah, because he's actually functional, not just like, So it's a whole nother conversation, but
number 6, weight train for your metabolism.
Weight train for your metabolism. Number 7, do cardio for your mental health. Number 8, I thought my, sorry, I'm trying to pop up the, there we go, screen share. Number 8, walk for your longevity. So it's like 6, 7, 8 kind of to me are the same. Weight train for your metabolism, do cardio for your mental health, and walk for your longevity.
Conversations I have with every single nutrition client, or even like we do like goal sessions, and like we just kind of rolled out free InBodies for all the members the past couple of months. And like this has been one of the most common conversation points. It's like, and this is something that came up a lot in our last nutrition challenge, is everyone, I think it was JJ had posed a question, and sorry if I misrepresenting the person that asked. It's like, should I do cardio to increase caloric burn so I could lose weight and X amount faster? It's like, absolutely not. That's in my opinion, that is the most unhealthy way to approach it. That's where you see people just chronically overtrained, trying to just burn every sense of calorie
while they overeat calories. Yeah.
Right. So
when you do cardio, you do not burn fat, you expend calories.
Right. Yeah. I mean, don't even talk to me about keto nonsense and fat burning and all that stuff. Like we don't need to go to, I don't want to go into that here.
And to be clear, you can quote unquote lose weight by doing cardio. Not to say that like you don't burn calories doing cardio. That's insane. What he's saying here, I think, is it's like saying you can say, hey, there's protein in peanut butter. Sure, there is protein in peanut butter, but we consider it a fat.
Sure.
Like it's mostly fat. So he's saying like, if you really want to get your metabolism in check, weight training is going to be the most effective way to do that.
Because you increase your lean muscle tissue, which in turn increases your body's caloric burn just by existing.
Yep.
Muscle costs more calories, to uphold than fat tissue does. The more muscle you have, the higher your basal metabolic rate. The higher your basal metabolic rate, the more calories you're burning by just being alive.
And you're increasing your strength and power output by building larger muscles. So when you do any activities, you're more capable and therefore burning more calories doing other things. It's a whole
get yoked.
Yeah. It's a whole circle of life.
Yeah.
Do cardio. So it's basically like if you're going to do all 3 of these things, in my mind, this is the way I interpret it. Like I do all 3 of these things, right? So I would kind of mix the 7 and 8, cardio for your mental health and walk for your longevity, because it's kind of like, sometimes walking is a mental health thing for more often than not. Like when we take a vacation, we go on a hike or something, it's like, that's a mental health thing. Cardio is more like
get your heart rate up,
a little bit longevity for me. I might switch those around, but I know people that are into cardio that it's a total mental thing. Like I just want to get out and jog for X amount of time.
Yeah. And
clear my head.
I think some of this is subjective too, right? Like Joel and I have this conversation almost every day where like he does cardio for his mental health. I do weightlifting for my mental health. Yeah. Again, it's going to but the general concept is the same. And it's important.
Well, and at the end of the day, do all 3 and just don't misunderstand. Hey, the mental health thing is like, that can be anything. It's video games. It's whatever it is for you. But out of those 3 things, when you're in the gym, for most people, it's like you're in the gym trying to understand how to reach your goals and what should I be doing for what.
Yeah.
that kind of is, it just puts a different perspective on stuff.
The next chunk is interesting to me.
Okay. Well, I haven't, to be clear, I kind of glossed over this list.
Yeah, I have this. I'm kind of hitting it for the first time. Other
so
than what
running isn't bad for your knees. Weak hips, ankles, and feet are. Do you disagree with that statement?
Yes. I think.
Yeah.
I think all 4 are bad for your knees. Although, like, to be clear, I don't like. We have to define like what running is.
Well, and I think it's true. I think my number one comment on running is like, what's your technique? Because it's the number one movement that people go, I can go out and do that with zero coaching and zero technique.
Also, the number one thing that people don't want to go through technical warm-ups on.
Yeah. And also super important, I think, with this is he's clumping these together, which I think to me is hugely important, the context. If we lump number 10 in with this, repetitive movements, swimming, running, and cycling create imbalances.
For sure.
Like that right there is the key to number 9. Running isn't bad for your knees. Like, true. None of these, and you can argue all kinds of things are bad. Like if all you ever did was squat, if your entire fitness plan was squatting.
That sounds so great though.
You're going to have knee problems probably. Yeah. Like you have to do accessory work. So running isn't bad for your knees.
Part 2 or part B of number 10.
Yeah, so I was just gonna run through the whole thing, like just to reiterate, running isn't bad for your knees, weak hips, ankles, and feet are. Repetitive movements, swimming, running, and cycling, which we would call monostructural movements, create imbalances. Single leg exercises are key to finding and addressing weaknesses.
I would say unilateral exercises.
Totally.
Like obviously this is specific to swimming, running, cycling.
Yes.
Although like swimming is whatever. Unilateral, single arm, single leg. Whatever.
Well, and again, to touch on just like why I loved this list initially was its simplicity. He's not using, so I try to absorb this kind of information all the time, and it comes from guys with PhDs who they're writing a thesis or whatever all the time, and they need to use heavy verbiage, and I just don't have the time or the patience for it. Yeah. I just I'm not trying to listen to your podcast and get bored to tears about the verbiage you're using and have to like Google something every 5 minutes. Like sure. I went to business school. I didn't study kinesiology or anatomy and all that kind of stuff. So love that, it's like, yeah, unilateral means one limb or one side, basically. So yes, I think he's oversimplifying, but totally agree. Lastly, number 11, you will stick with cardio if you find a version you enjoy. So obviously. At the end of the day, like, and people as a trainer for 12 years or 13 years, I've been asked, should I be running? Should I be rowing? Should I be biking? Whatever. My dad is in his 70s and he is historically a runner. He enjoys running. And at one point I gave him a rower. He wasn't coming into the gym, and I gave him a rower just because I said, rowing at home or during the winter is probably one of the greatest cardio exercises you can do to offset running. It's like kind of the opposite muscles. There's a little bit of arms involved. It's posterior chain. It's a little more hamstring than quad. Depending on how you do it, it's going to train your low back a little bit. It's a good complement. If you do nothing else, I'm like, hey, if I'm not there to coach you and I can't give you an extensive list of accessory work, here you go. Yeah, the rower is like a great kind of complement to that. So, yeah. And now he's coming to the gym, and of course he's doing single leg squats. We're doing, step ups. We're doing single arm stuff, posterior chain stuff, all kinds of stuff. So it's, you can go as deep down that rabbit hole as you want to go. Next cluster, 12, 13, 14. I keep turning our screen sharing on and off. 12, hard workouts and a shitty diet equals high risk for injury. I'll run through all 3 of them. 13, fitness is mental. Talk positively about yourself and believe in your future success. 14, the best warm-up is simple movement through full range of motion. Hard workouts and a shitty diet equals higher risk for injury. 100%.
I guess. I mean...
those aren't explicitly but I love, again, it's simplicity, like to somebody who's just the average individual. I think he's a guy who's just broadcasting this out to the general population, right? And you look at somebody who's not a member of our gym or a CrossFitter at all, just somebody who's like, man, there's so many things. There's F45, there's CrossFit, there's Pilates, there's yoga, there's triathlons, there's running, biking, rowing, there's keto, there's all this, like, what is the recipe? And it's kind of like, in the context of all the options there are in the world, going out and doing super hard workouts and eating like shit, like frankly what a lot of cross training / CrossFit gyms are probably doing, not coaching nutrition and just having you come in and not coaching you through a proper warm up and just cranking the intensity up to 11.
Yeah, hard workouts and a shitty diet to me like conveys like, if you're not going to care about one of the most basic things like what you eat every day, you're probably not going to be caring about technique and proper warm ups and proper progressions,
right?
And proper programming,
yes.
and all of this stuff. So like, yeah, if you extend it out
and again putting that in the full context of this cluster here, 12, 13, 14, skip ahead to 14. It's like the best warm up is simple movement through full range of motion.
Yep.
Like that's what we try to do here at the gym. Like don't send me up for a heavy squat day without taking me through some knee over toe lunges and a couple of quad stretch or like some Cossack squats or whatever. Like, let's get a single leg movement in there. And I think that kind of ropes into that.
Yep.
You'd like, what we hear all the time over and over from people that drop in other CrossFit gyms are, they wrote something on the board and just put us to work.
Yeah.
Which is that, like, they're not talking about diet. They're just like, come in here and do this hard ass workout, crank the intensity up, do whatever you want for your warm up. You know your body. You don't know your body. You're paying for a gym membership.
Yeah.
to get coaching.
That was always a big thing in like the weightlifting community. Is like, rarely are warm ups programmed, but as you know, the idea is like, if you've been doing this long enough, your warm up's going to look different than someone else's. Like how I warm up for a clean and jerk is going to be different from you. But again, like that's a different community, a different sport. Like when you go into a CrossFit gym and you're doing a class, like your coach should warm you up well. Yeah. They should know how the body moves. They should know how joints work. Yeah. I mean, that's
what you're paying for. You're paying triple or quadruple what an average gym membership costs sometimes to come to a CrossFit gym, a group fitness class. So the fact that you're not getting a warm up sometimes is disturbing.
Fitness is mental. Everyone should talk positively about themselves. I do not disagree one bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although you'll hear me often talk bad about myself.
And to read into that even more, we talk about the advantages of a class setting or class environment, and the fact of how sometimes some people are capable of pushing themselves really hard by themselves without music, whatever, at home in a garage, but that's not rare. It's rare.
And I would argue, even the ones that can do that are still going to push harder in a class.
Be a problem.
Just because you can push hard does not mean you cannot push hard.
And they're inevitably the Rich Fronings and the Matt Frasers and the Tias, like they're still seeking out training partners. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily taking a class, but they're still trying to find people to train with because it's just more effective.
Yeah. I love the next cluster. Honestly, probably my favorite one.
Okay. As a side note here, well, two side notes. One is I want to point out that the thumbs up we got was from Rob Schmidgen, so shout out to Rob. I got a thumbs up, and I guess he was watching, and just this software just is so fun. Yeah, we get a thumbs up live from Rob, and then I said, I don't know who gave us the thumbs up, and then he commented, it's me. I'm the thumbs up. Also, we're at numbers 15 through 17. We're going to probably cut it off after one or two more clusters, and we'll come back for like a part 2 and finish this up, just so we're not doing a 90-minute podcast. Yeah. We're only 30-ish minutes in, so not terrible, but just heads up. Yeah, give us the next cluster.
Number 15, family walks after meals should be non-negotiable. They improve insulin sensitivity, recovery from workouts, and overall mood. Number 16, hydration starts the days before exercise, not the morning of. And then number 17, rarely is the area of pain the source of your problem.
Yeah.
Number 15 was something that I picked up on a couple of years ago. I'm not the best at practicing it, but if you implement it, like you'll see the benefits almost immediately, right? Like, especially if you have gut issues, especially if you have like sluggishness, especially if you're trying to maybe cut some weight out, like a little non-exercise activity does the trick. Also, if you've got dogs, they get more exercise, so it's everyone wins.
Yeah, super good for your mood.
And you'd be surprised what's in your neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kelly's always been really good about that. To be totally fair, I don't particularly enjoy walks. I prefer to like exercise. But I will walk with her occasionally, and it's like, it's one of those things that I don't necessarily enjoy doing, but I'm never upset that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he touches on this, but just as a quick side note, one of the reasons I like that is because I've been reading a lot of like blurbs. I don't know what you call it. It's like scientifically backed. Like someone else did the research, read the papers or whatever, and they're posting it on Instagram or something. So like, to be fair, I didn't do. I'm reading the Cliff's Notes of someone else's research, but it's legitimate. Like, so it's about taking in UV light into your eyes, like first thing in the morning for X amount of time to improve energy and mood throughout the day. It's like your part of your kind of like circadian rhythm or whatever. It's like your brain needs to like see sunlight and like actual outdoor light throughout the day, especially in the beginning of the day, to like both wake your body up and put you to sleep. Like it's part of the whole like blue blocking lenses and stuff. It's part of the whole system. It's like why we're trying to like not look at screens less and have glasses that block blue light and stuff at night to go to bed. So getting out for walks is like part of that.
Yeah.
And all obviously the other great stuff you mentioned.
Yeah. 16, hydration starts the days before exercise, not the morning of.
I mean, your body works on like a
delay,
like for stuff like that. To me, it's always been like a 48 to 36 hour delay.
This applies to like exercise fueling too.
Yeah. And junk food. Like if I blow it out and have like a cheat day, I feel great the next day. I'm like, oh man, I wake up and I'm like, I look in the mirror. I'm like, oh, I had a ton of pizza and I had a little bit of candy yesterday. Like I still look great. It doesn't catch up with me till 48 hours later. And then I'm like, oh, there's that. It's there's so that funny. Cupcake. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem, at least for myself. And I think that's the problem a lot of people have with nutrition is that like kind of like blow it out a little bit. And then they're like, oh, I don't look that bad or whatever. I'm not really seeing the ramifications. They do it again the next day. And then it catches up with them a day later.
Or like inversely, it's like you have one off day where like your spouse wants to go out for drinks and get dinner, pizza, whatever. You wake up the next morning and you're a pound less than you were the day before, and then you're 4 pounds heavier the day after. It's like, your body is like retaining water. You had a lot of salt, you had a lot of booze, like you slept like hell.
Yeah, and you're trying to relate it to whatever stuff that's not.
You're like, oh, I ate great and I gained 4 pounds. What the hell? It's like, no. What did you eat 2 days ago?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I love that, and he's putting it in the context of hydration, which is also important.
Yeah, again, like this is a really important competing. It's like the days leading up to your competition, you need to be hydrating, you need to be eating well, you need to be properly fueling.
That doesn't apply to everyone. The days leading up to your winter wonder ruck
started 3 days ago, but
yeah. So if you're watching this, start drinking water 2 days ago. And if you're doing the Wonder Ruck, shout out Winter Wonder Ruck 2023. Yeah, and then rarely is the area of pain the source of your problem, which is great. You said
people this so many times.
This is, dude, same. And then this guy's a former PT. You said, right?
Yeah, or he may be current. Like he has his doctorate in physical therapy.
Okay,
so
that's what I and always careful to stay in my lane as a trainer because it's kind of like.
But also, like I've never seen one established and respected PT that has not said this.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty fair to.
I've only ever seen like one PT, so but totally true. I'm like always look up or downstream or opposite of whatever your pain point
also
is.
Goes back to running, right? Like he said, running is not the cause of your knee issues. And then granted, like I still think running is probably not the best thing for your knees if you're doing it long distance and you're doing it daily. But just to kind of go back to that, it's like if you've got knee pain, it's not likely because of your knee. Like say that you're squatting a lot and you're starting to attribute that to knee pain. It's like you probably got crap ankles or you have bad external rotation in your hip. Like all of this stuff is going to impact your knee.
And you're not stretching.
Yeah.
and you're not accessorizing.
Successorizing.
You're not doing accessory work. Yeah.
Yeah, always
Totally.
look like, again, elbow pain, look at your shoulder, look at your wrist, if you
Totally agree.
whatever.
All right, let's get through what do you want to get through, like number 23 or 26, and then we'll call it. We'll do like two or three more clusters here. Leg day is the most important day for improving upper body strength.
I disagree.
It's actually been scientifically, I've seen studies, they've shown like men that they did a study where like, and again, this is totally anecdotal because I don't have the link or anything, but I read this like summarization of a study where they took a bunch of people and they had them only train legs, and they saw an increase in upper body strength.
But is that more important than
no
just doing like upper body strength work? Like, again, context matters, right?
Yeah,
I would say if I'm looking at this and kind of how, again, like I am just shot in the dark, maybe this is what he's saying, but classically, people make fun of bodybuilders or very casual bodybuilder people that work out because they skip leg day. It's not show muscles. So it could just, my extrapolate or my guess is that he's saying like, hey, train your legs. For someone like me who has a classically weak upper body, but can squat much more, deadlift much more, it's like, I don't think I'm going to improve my upper body strength by squatting more.
Here's the way I would put it. If you're, in my interpretation, if you're building a house and you have, we'll make it simple. You have $100,000 budget. That's ridiculous in today's economy, but you have a five in this economy. You have a $500,000 budget to build a house from scratch. You have and just to simplify it, you have things like, am I going to build a basement / foundation? And am I going to build the rest of the house that sits on top? And you have the option of doing a $50,000 foundation or a $150,000 foundation or whatever, or a $250,000 foundation to go underneath your house. And that extra $150K is going to go a long way to help you put in heated bathroom floors or those triple pane windows or whatever, and have a nicer upper level. But 10 years from now, part of your foundation could crack and it ruins a whole wall of the house or something. Like, that's kind of how I look at it, as like, well, for someone like you, you're already doing a full, pretty well-rounded training regimen. But for somebody who's like, again, this guy is a Ironman competitor. So it's like, I think what he's effectively saying is a lot of people that are training for endurance sports think they're already doing leg day because they're going out and running and cycling or whatever. And they're kind of quote unquote skipping leg day and they're training upper body. And it, like I said, there has been studies that show like simply at a scientific level, just doing leg day with no other factors involved, just doing leg day increased people's upper body strength. So it's just kind of like, it's the foundation. It's like laying a great foundation for your upper body work. So basically don't skip it. Yeah. I mean, you can break down
you should never skip it.
Direct verbiage of it's the most important day. And it's like, it's crucial.
Yeah.
If you're spending all your time doing upper body work, you're
missing the boat.
You're getting diminishing returns.
Sure.
Static stretching is best after activity and when held for greater than 60 seconds.
Couldn't agree more.
Yes, 100%. Active warm-ups or like dynamic movement, full range of motion for warm-up, static stretch, cool down.
Should probably still static stretch before if you have mobility, flexibility limitations.
If the activity you're doing is going to be impacted significantly by your lack of mobility in a specific area, static stretching is required. But static stretching has been shown to reduce the contractile strength of muscles.
Sure.
For physical activity.
Yep.
Like noodly loose rubber bands. Noodly. Compete only against the guy in the mirror, not the guy who has already been in the gym for 10 years. Duh.
Yeah. But also find some healthy competition. Find someone to race if it helps you.
Yeah.
I know it helps you a lot.
Like I race Sean.
And I race Sean. guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it comes kind of back to the mentality thing that we kind of touched on a little bit ago. The competitive athlete training alone in their garage. Like, I don't do well with that. I need to picture somebody else doing harder work than me somewhere else, or literally right next to me. Like, I need someone to beat.
Yeah.
I need a motivation for that. Kelly, my wife, doesn't need that. She doesn't necessarily understand that. Not to say that she's not motivated. She was a competitive athlete, so she gets motivated by other people doing better than her. But to me, when I'm training, I need to, like, there are times when I want to quit. And I used to tell myself, hey, my buddy that owns this other gym in town that we, just had kind of like a friendly, like, we would show up to train together or do the open together or whatever. And I would just think, like, he would not be resting right now. He'd be picking that up or moving, and that just kind of pushed me through. So yeah, but that's still in your head. Like, that's a competitive athlete that I'm picturing in my head.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you compete against me, and 90% of the time I have no idea.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, and we've talked about this before. Like, I love a CrossFit class because I just pick a random person in class and go, I'm not going to let that person beat me. Yeah. And it's a different person. It doesn't even matter. Like, it could just be somebody who's like, yeah, it could be somebody who's just kind of good at whatever.
If someone gets too far ahead of you, just go to the next person.
I either like pick an individual. So if you're a member and you're watching, like, I'm picking you out possibly and trying to beat you in a workout. You may not even know about it. So yeah, I was just like, you may not be good at, like, the best athlete at everything, but if I think you're going to be good at this burpee and running workout, and not like I'm earmarking the best athletes, I'm like, who do I think is going to be kind of close to me, or I'll wait a couple rounds in, then I'll spot them. It's like yesterday, I went chasing after Joe Carroll's score because he put up 44 reps in that hang squat clean thruster thing. I didn't get him, but I saw his strategy and I was like, I'm going to try that strategy. And then I abandoned the strategy almost immediately. And I was like, should have stuck with the strategy. All right. We'll get through this last cluster and we'll wrap it up for the day. Sean, take us through 21, 22, 23.
21. Life is about overcoming resistance. No better way to learn this than through exercise. Number 22. Commit to exercise for 1 week. Stack a few early wins, and it can snowball into life change. And number 23, the old acid classic. Find a 0-drop shoe with a wide toe box. Traditional shoes will kill your feet.
Freaking love that.
I mean,
I was waiting for that.
Life's about overcoming resistance. I use this analogy with the burpee every single time we do them, and someone wants to complain. It's like, you're literally getting knocked down and you have to get back up. What better analogy for life, right? That might be depressing.
What's the quote from Batman? What do we do when we fall, Bruce?
I don't know that quote.
You haven't seen Batman?
I mean, I have.
He said when they're doing the origin story, he's like falls in the well or cave full of bats, and he's like, why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up.
Cute.
That's like a yeah. And then he turned into this mentally insane person who pummels criminals. Yeah, that's what I tell the master's class all the time. I'm like, someday, I know you guys hate burpees, but like one day, legitimately,
you're gonna fall.
Could be this week.
Yeah,
you're gonna fall, and you're gonna and multiple masters athletes have told me, like, I either I fell or like I had to get down on the floor for something or whatever. I had to get down and up multiple times, and like I used what you taught me to get down and off the floor, and I felt more powerful.
I mean, literally, like, the most basic human function is picking yourself up. Like, if you cannot pick yourself up if you're on the ground, like, you need to be.
I just talked to our master's athlete, Cynthia, and she just had surgery on her foot, and they put her in a boot, and she's in a walking boot, but she's not even supposed to be walking on it. Like, she's got a huge incision on the bottom of her foot, basically from toe to heel. And they were like, don't even walk, like, get up and go to the bathroom and then just go sit back down or lay back down. And she said, man, the upper body strength I've developed has really helped me move around.
Pull it up.
Yeah.
Commit to exercise for 1 week, stack a few early wins, and it can snowball into life change. I think this is pretty obvious one. I would
as evidenced by the attendance in in our gym. Mondays are way busier than Fridays.
Yeah. I mean, I would extend this out to like commit to an exercise
that's the way you do
routine or schedule or whatever for 30 days, right? Like that's generally about the time it takes to start to initiate a habit.
Yeah, but a lot of people, when you're dealing with the the general population, people come into the gym, they're checking out the gym, and I tell them 3 days a week, dead minimum.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing nothing else, if you're not working out outside of here, and you're coming in here to talk to me about a CrossFit membership for once or twice a week, you're wasting your time and your money.
Yeah.
Now, if you're training for an Ironman or something and you're out doing 4 endurance workouts a week and you're going to come in here twice a week and lift some weights, that's might be another conversation. I would still say 3 days a week, but like that might be another conversation. Yeah. So I think my takeaway from that is like commit to look at your week as a whole, get 3+ days in there. Yeah.
I'll let you take the last one.
Find a 0 drop shoe with a wide toe box. Traditional shoes kill you feet. I think he left an R out, but the point is there.
Or he's calling us all feet. He forgot a comma. One of the two. I got the same shoes on my feet.
You got the fluxes on?
Yeah.
I feel like, I feel like a crazy person sometimes, like a conspiracy theorist, where I'm like, people are like, I just got these new Nikes. And I'm like, no, I'm more. So I'm wearing the Flux trainer, which I bought for the coaching staff here, because it's the best kind of like middle ground. It's a great all around shoe. It's sturdy enough to work out in. It's comfortable enough to walk around all day. And I think personally, they're stylish enough to wear.
Yeah. I think the last two, I don't think I'd ever work out in them, honestly.
Yeah, I will agree. They're not my favorite workout shoe, to be fair. I'm planning on doing a full review on the Flux trainer, but they're a good, because they're kind of like a knit, stretchy upper. They don't give you a lot of like side to side stability, so not great for weightlifting, but like pretty good for a general Metcon if you're.
I do like double unders and burpees and stuff in them.
Absolutely. I would say they're comfortable enough to go for a pretty decent run. I think. But I'm also like, I don't love we talked about running technique earlier. Like, I don't love the idea of going out and buying like an insane pair of running shoes with a big,
I will say,
chunky, fluffy sole.
I will always be a advocate for Ultra running shoes, which is a 0 drop.
I haven't had a pair, but I like they read well.
Yeah.
I just see when
cushiony versus like the Flux. Yeah. There's zero, not zero. There's minimal.
I was gonna say I've gone really minimal on shoes and kind of pulled back, and the reason I like the Flux is because there's a little cushion in there.
Yeah, but like the Ultras are like not made for running.
Here's the thing, not to get too specific on that. Like I do want to talk more about shoes, obviously, at some point in the future, and I'll do. I've got 2 pairs of shoes that I really enjoy right now that I want to do a full review on, but so be on the lookout for those. But in general, the conversations I end up having with people, and it's another one of those things where I'm not a foot doctor, or I'm not a podiatrist, or a like an ortho. So my opinion carries a little less weight than others. But like when people come to, well, I can't do that because I have a flat arch, or I can't do that because I have a high arch. You're the person who needs this the most. To put simply, like I just had this conversation with somebody recently. Thinks that like most Nikes are too narrow, but
because they are
referred to the Nike Air Force Ones as a quote wide shoe. And I was like, you're insane. You're a crazy person. That's the farthest thing. Well, they might be, and this is a female and she's wearing really pointy like leather boots. I'm not going to name names.
I think we call them out. Put them on blast. Put a picture of them up. I don't care.
It's highly unlikely she's watching, but Austin's probably watching. Austin knows. He was there for the conversation. Squat hold champion of December. She's wearing really pointy leather boots, and I'm like, yeah, compared to those, what you're wearing, I'm sure they feel like wide shoes. But I'll tell you, I've tried what I would consider to be the widest toe box shoes on the market, the Splays, and at least they're by far the widest I've ever tried. And a Nike Air Force One isn't even in the same realm of existence.
Yeah.
So to some extent, like, please go out and just like reevaluate your concept of what a wide toe box is. Like ordering a traditional New Balance or Nike or whatever, sometimes they're available. You can get the D or whatever they put on them. That's like a wider foot, a narrow foot. Like those are not truly wide toe box shoes. Like if you can't feel yourself actively spread your toes out inside your shoe and extend your toes, to me, that's like, it's not a wide toe box.
Yeah.
And you know, her argument was, well, I can't remember if she had a flat arch, a high arch, but she's like, when I wear flatter shoes, my foot's sore. I'm like, because it's weak. It's like, imagine you wore a weight belt all the time, every day, day in and day out, because you're like, because it was stylish or whatever. It was, you know, better than not wearing one or something for whatever reason. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to go, you know, I wear it to work out and everything. And it's like, when you take it off, you haven't created more stability. You've created probably more problems. You've created weakness.
Goes back to our.
And now when you do this deadlift workout without a weight belt on, now your back is really tired and sore because now your back has to do all this extra work because you took this weight belt off.
Kind of goes back to our don't create strength without establishing range of motion first.
Yeah.
Just for the feet.
And look at the thing that kind of got me about it was I started like really thinking about it philosophically. I started looking at my hand and I was like, your foot is kind of like a different hand. It's like you obviously with much shorter fingers, longer palm, just like not an opposable thumb, obviously, but like on some level it's really similar. And you're like, look at all the things I can do with my hand, like incredible things, and that people in general can do with their hands. Play the piano, draw, you know, type, just like amazing things. And then I thought about the things I could do with my toes, and I was like, I can't do anything with my toes. I can't even. I started at one point in my life. I started like, I would pull my socks off with just my toes. I would like sit down and pull each sock off, and then I would pick the sock up and hand it to my hand or put it directly in the hamper. Because when I started, I was like, I can't pinch a friggin' sock between my big toe and my second toe. Like that doesn't seem right to me. And I know people that wear normal shoes and still go barefoot a lot and use their toes. So I guess at the end of the day, get barefoot, get a wider, like what I've noticed wearing wider toe box shoes is I constantly can move my toes around. I'm way more aware of what my toes are doing. And when I go for a run, usually just like 800 meters or less in a workout or something, I'll wear a more minimal shoe like a Flux or something like that. I'm so much more aware of what my toes are doing and how involved they are in the process. Yeah. And I got my feet and calves got pretty tired for quite a long time because I was using them. I wasn't.
It's like anytime you start any new
strapping,
movement, whatever.
Yeah, it was tough. You got to train your feet, make them stronger. And there are exercises and drills, and like people talk about toe spacers. Toe spacers are great, but they're not the end all be all. Like I don't really use toe spacers as much. I just kind of went with a wider shoe and try to just let my toes. Kelly got a pair. I like them. I put them on and wear them for a while, but for some people that might be a great solution. But it's my favorite thing on the list so far. What a great way to end. Great. So that is our podcast for today. And let me see if there it is. Yeah, part 1. Make a note somewhere.
I got it. I'll keep it up.
23. We'll pick it back up hopefully next week, and we'll hopefully get into a more regular rhythm on the podcast here, and I'll update some graphics because we're on the wrong side.
First one is always going to be some pain.
Folks, thanks for watching. I'm Sean Crocker.
Interesting.
That is your podcast. Thanks for thanks for watching and or listening. We'll check you next time.